It's time to fix my shit running form. Having 9 weeks off absolutely fucks your running form, because running is like this movement pattern that you refine and refine over time, and you get more and more efficient and faster, and you start to move really well the more that you do it. And running well is really important until you stop, because all of those mechanics fade into nothingness, leaving you with only one option: be a beginner again. Which is really hard and annoying and long, and it cannot be rushed. But I think there's a couple of things that you can do to speed this process up and tweak your running form so that you can become a weapon once again. But firstly, we need to start with some sort of form checklist, right? Now here's how we're gonna do it. I'm gonna show a video about now of me running at around a tempo pace, a little bit faster than easy, to get an idea of my running form, and I'll give you about 10 seconds to dissect it and rip me apart in the comments below. It's not too fast, but also not plodding along like an easy run. And this checklist that we're going to use is going to be like a point system, just the way I like it. Okay, starting from the side, cadence. That's how many steps you take per minute. Generally, anywhere from 170 to 190 is all right. So below 170, and you start to spend a little bit too much time on the ground to be economical. And above 180, well, there's actually nothing really wrong with that. That's probably pretty good. Below 170 cadence, 1 point. 170 to 180 is 2 points. And 180 and above, well, that's full marks, 3 points. Now next up, ground contact time. Basically, that's the time that you spend on the ground. Anywhere from 170 to 200 milliseconds is probably fine for this kind of pace range. And if my calculations are correct, at 60 FPS, it's about every 12 frames that I should be getting off the ground, I think. But anyways, 220 milliseconds or longer is probably a little bit too long, so 1 point. 219 or lower is 2 points. Next one is shin angle, which is the angle of your shin at full hip extension. This angle right here. Having a high shin angle is a pretty good determinant of running economy and how efficient you are at recovering your leg. A low shin angle is probably below the level of the ground. Not ideal. 1 point. In line, I'll give you 2 points, and above that line, 3 points. Very efficient. Now the next one, which ties in quite well with shin angle, is hip extension, or how far backwards your upper leg can go angularly. The more hip extension that you have, the better, basically. If you have 0 to 10 degrees of hip extension at this pace, I'll give you 2 points. 1 point if you don't really get any extension at all. And if you have 0 to 10 degrees of hip extension, I'll give you 1 point. And if you have no hip extension at all, minus 10 points. You shouldn't even be running. The next one is shoulder extension. Shoulder extension helps a lot with running efficiency and balance. Basically, there's a lot of anatomy and physiology that I'm probably not going to talk about in this video about how shoulder extension and contralateral hip extension actually really help in being really powerful and strong and efficient when running. But I'm not sure that you actually care about that, so we'll just skip past it. Now, running from the front is more about how stable you are in a running position, aka standing on one leg. I'll show you what I mean. As we take a step, generally, we will see that our upper body will stack onto the side that we are stepping on. It basically acts like a big spring, a lateral spring. Hip stability, very important. Running is all about standing on one leg and then standing on the other. This means that we need to be good at standing on one leg. Makes sense, right? Level, 1 point. Not level, 0 points. Now the next aspect to this puzzle is knee tracking. We don't want our knees to be tracking in the wrong kind of way. We don't want our knee to be caving in completely just like this. It's not really efficient, and biomechanically, the knee doesn't really like it. We want to be tracking over our second toe. Good knee tracking, 1 point. Bad knee tracking, 0 points. Head stability is really important because it just looks stupid when your head is flopping from side to side like a chicken. Floppy head, 0 points. Not floppy head, 1 point. So how do we address these issues? Well, probably gonna have to wait until after work before I tell you that. So how do you address these form issues? Well, it's more simple than you think, because as you get faster over time, these little form issues tend to balance themselves out. So first step is to just not give up. But generally, I like to split this form improvement methodology into 2 different things: cues and strength and mobility. Cues are things that you think about when running to cue yourself. Cues. And the cues that people use are actually highly specific to the things that they have wrong with their running form. And these become really important when you get really tired in a run and you really have to make sure that your technique isn't completely falling apart. But here are a couple of things that I personally use to keep my form in check by using cues. The first one is cadence. We want to keep it ticking. That's what I think about in my brain. Keep it ticking. Because what tends to happen when you fatigue is that your ground contact time increases, which means that you're spending more time on the ground, meaning that you slow down, and overall your cadence starts to drop. And cue number 2 that I use to help with improving cadence is shoulder extension. Making sure that we're keeping our arms flowing all the time. And if we're too stiff when we're running and we're not using our arms and we're not laterally shifting or rotating at all, we're not going to be stacking our joints on top of each leg in a really economical way. So it all kind of like comes into this big mess. And lastly, don't do a bobblehead thing like this when you're running. It's dumb. So strength and mobility is the key to getting faster and getting better running form, because being able to be strong is really important, but also being able to be pliable and flexible whilst running is also really important. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Hip drop is due to glute weakness. So here's what I do. Level 1 of this program is lateral hip abductions in a plank position. Level 2 is single leg squats. Now the next thing that we want to fix is knee drop. Knee drop is when our knee drops in, like I showed you before on the treadmill. And this too comes down to glute weakness. I'll show you what I mean. When my knee drops in like this, my hip is actually internally rotated. But when I bring the knee out into a good knee position, that means I'm using my glutes. Now thankfully, level 1 and level 2 of this is what we just did before with the side plank and the single leg squats, because it actually addresses the same problem. Okay, hip extension to improve that hip mobility that we talked about and that shin angle, because having good hip extension and a good shin angle is really important to run fast and also economically. Level 1, starting in a shortened position, hanging hip flexion. I like doing this one in hanging, but you can do it however way that you like, whether you do it in lying or actually I don't know any other ways that you could do it, but anyway. Now level 2 is a banded single leg to hip flexion thingo. It doesn't really have a name, I kind of made it up. Actually, I'm pretty sure I saw Usain Bolt do this on YouTube. And level 3, the split lunge with weights. This will help to improve your strength in a lengthened position and help with mobility. Epic. Now this last exercise is to improve your plyometric ability, or your ability to store and release energy in your legs as fast as possible, and that is going to help your ground contact time. Now level 1 is just general strengthening, because I wouldn't recommend doing plyometrics immediately. I would definitely build up over a couple of weeks. So the first level is just calf raises. Then we can progress to level 2, repeated jumps. You repeat 5 to 10 jumps, trying to spend the least amount of time on the ground as possible. Level 3. Now the key to all this stuff to improve your form is to start doing it straight away, and then just never stop doing it ever. Ever. Peace.